Welcome to another RD Works Learning Lab. It is Christmas. Well, nearly. So, let's get the party started.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry
Come on,
Christmas
stop the music.
and a Happy New...
Thank you. Right. I think we're going to get a bit serious in a minute, but I've had to forgo my coffee today in favour of something a little bit more festive. And it makes me wonder whether I should be using the machine today even. But hey, we've got a few things we want to show you to sort of put you in a Christmas mood. So let's proceed and see what we can do. Right, now before we get stuck into anything really serious, I feel a little bit peckish. So in the UK here at Christmas time, we have these little pie things called mince pies. Now there's no meat in these at all, it's all fruit and a sauce inside, a juice or a jam. So this particular one hasn't got a star, hasn't got a snowflake on it, not very festive at all. So we're going to have a go at just trying to make it a little bit happier before I eat it. And also the general tradition is we eat these things warm. Hey, we can decorate it and make it warm at the same time, maybe. To eat. Let me just see. Well, it's got a slightly burnt caramel taste and it's not warm. But hey, I haven't destroyed it. And I can always wash down the horrible taste with something a little bit more enjoyable. Right, that's better. Let's get on to something a little bit more serious now, shall we? The next thing we're going to attempt is a seasonal label for your presents. Now, here I've got some, probably about 230 gram card, and I'm sitting it on my pin table, so I've got to set it fairly accurately underneath the nozzle at the corner there. We have to make sure that it is sitting down, specifically on the corners, on the pins. We don't want it sitting up, because otherwise it'll be out of focus. So you might just have to gently tease the corners of the card down if it isn't sitting flat. I try and keep all my card flat inside in a drawer so it's nice and dry. If you leave it in the damp, it could go anywhere. Now, this is also a very interesting exercise in programming. Getting the order right. Here we are, one little seasonal label. Well, I've got my sheets set up on the pin table, and I've got a piece at the end here which is level with my pins, a nice chunk of metal which will hold the whole thing nice and stable. Just drop a couple of little magnets on there and start the whole process off. Now I've programmed this so that it does one pattern at a time, so it doesn't jump around all over the place. Cusp of hissy mode, as you can hear. It goes quiet and hissy. Now what I had to do before I started making the cards was to make these two little pieces of tooling. They're embossing tools which allow me to, basically, if I've machined away this surface and left behind this little raised snowflake here, and this surface here is a natural surface, but I've embossed a slightly larger snowflake into the surface of this one, and so they finish up fitting together like that, like a hand in a glove. So if I sit my card on these raised sections here, dropping it over the pins, and then I drop this piece on top, what will happen is when I press this together under my little press here, I will force the card down over these raised pieces. And while the laser is whirring away behind me, I just drop that onto the pins and put the other part on top, and then I put that in my little press and give it a gentle squeeze. And there we are, some really nice embossed snowflakes. So now we're going to make the inner part of the card, and we've rearranged the pins a little bit just to support the paper in a different way. Job done. Just roll the magnets off. Way we don't have to fight with them, and that's got to go for printing now. We've done the printing on our flat sheets, so it's just a matter of basically folding them now and fitting it into the card. A final fold down along the crease there, and finally with the Pritt stick, just a little blob of glue there. And there's the final result. Here's the jig that I've made for making coasters and the cardboard wraps for the coasters. Now this jig is actually fixed down solidly to my machine with a couple of screws, just so that I can use absolute positioning, bolt this back and always run the same program. I don't have to worry about repositioning the head. So here's some thin card. And I've got a 2-inch lens in here which I've already set up. Extraction on and... the cardboard wrap for the coasters, which I'll show you now. Now this is obviously just a piece of 3mm birch acrylic and it twists all over the place, but what we've done here, we've designed this so that the gap between this support plate here and the underneath of this retaining lip here is just over 3mm, so that the plywood sits in there and it gets trued up and is sitting nice and flat now, probably within better than 0.2 or 0.3 of a millimetre. So I will just change the program. It will just reset the focus because obviously this is thicker material. And it should automatically start in the right place regardless of where I've been working, because it's set up to, because it's using absolute positioning. Now I will just close the lid. Now we can look inside the machine underneath the lid here. We've got such a big gap there that the focal point of the lens is so unfocused by the time it gets down to the base plate that it doesn't burn the base plate. And there we go, job done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No chance of anything getting damaged because it's all suspended. And look at the superb edge finish with no charring on it at all. Now these are all ready to go off to another jig which holds them 6 at a time for engraving with the compound lens. Well, here we are over on China Blue, and we're going to try and convert these coasters into some sort of a Christmas gift for some unlucky person. Yeah, well, let's try and do this little next bit seriously, should we? Now, again, I have screwed down a little jig in here, which is fixed to absolute coordinates so that I don't have to keep setting this up every time I do them. And what we're going to do is we're just going to place our 6 coasters now into the jig like that, and they fit perfectly. Just make sure they're all flat because we are going to do some engraving on them and we need to make sure that they are as flat as we can possibly get them. Now I've already prepared an image to go on the coaster, and if we look carefully here you might just be able to see the green outline of 6 coasters. Now there is no specific order to do this in. This at the moment is still a bitmap file, as you can see. What I've done, I've got handles around it. I'm now going to hold the shift key down and I'm going to mark this first coaster. And now I've got these 2 items technically grouped together in one marquee. And what I can do is now use the tools up here to center that way and that way so that my image is nicely centered in the coaster. I can now mark this again with handles, and we can go up here to bitmap handle and we can do the necessary changes that we want to apply to this view. Now I'm going to start off with 0 and 0 for my brightness and contrast, and I don't know, maybe just bring the brightness up just a little bit, more, maybe 15% or something like that. That's typically a number that I've found that works for me, and maybe the contrast up by about 10%. Just enough brightness. Now I've already set the resolution to 254, as you can see, but now we need to dither it with dot graphic. Apply to view and apply to source. OK. Right, so now we've got to go and set the parameters. The first thing we've got our green layer there. If we click on the green layer, we need to make sure, is the output no? We only want that green layer there as a location reference to know where we are. So we go to the bitmap layer, and I know that for this machine, probably on wood, 22-25%, which is what I've already got set there. Scan, yes. Blowing, no. Speed 200. Processing is X-swing, and we've got the interval set to 0.1. We've got none of these tick boxes here ticked, and that's all we need to do. So we've set the position, we've set the parameter, but what we haven't done is created 6 copies or 5 copies. And so we come across here to virtual array now, and you'll see that the virtual array is tucked up into that top left hand corner. So we're going to now produce our array 3 across, and we're going to put 5mm spacing between them because that's what I've planned for. And then in Y we've got 2, and again 5mm spacing, and we set up this virtual array, and there we go. Look, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've only got 1 copy of this picture going down to the machine, and it will repeat itself 6 times. So we're not using huge amounts of memory to run 6 pictures. We're only running 1 picture 6 times. Now, because I mess around with different machines, different settings, I always have to remember when I'm doing a job like this to come back into this corner here and set the position to absolute coordinates. Otherwise it'll jump around all over the place, and it'll do unexpected things. But of course, before we start, I've got to set the focus. And for this lens, I've found that focus is nominally between 10.5 and 11.2 or 3, but the best setting seems to be around about 10.8 or 10.9, and there we go. That just feels perfectly. It's just starting resistance at about 10.8. Look, I've got my head set right in the middle of the machine there, and I'm not going to set a 0. It should automatically move to the first job and start scanning up the job.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. The tidings we bring to you and your king.
And we don't want any more Christmas music, bar humbug. We'll just let this drift away, and we'll come back in about probably about 10 or 15 minutes and see what we've produced. Well, I think this has been a very successful 2018. We've managed to crack the secrets of photo engraving on wood, on card. I haven't tried it on every other material yet, but I think we've got the basis sorted out now. The best that we can do is 254 dots per inch, and hey, it does a magnificent job of producing photo reproductions on those materials. This is just a photograph of a garland that I had on my front door, taken with my phone, and just done a little bit of preparation in Photoshop. Superb, isn't it? These are definitely not going to waste. I mean, who would want coasters with a garland on? I know, my wife. Yes. Would your wife be happy with these as a Christmas present? If you've been married long enough, you know the answer to the question. But I can assure you that my wife is going to get these as a Christmas present. Now, she's going to be very, very, very disappointed because she is expecting, I believe, a diamond ring. I'll tell you what we'll do. I've prepared a couple of special coasters there, and although you'd normally expect to see a ring in a little box like this, I'm afraid it's not going to go in that little box. It's going to go inside there with a little piece of wadding to stop it floating around and rattling. And there we go, 6 wonderful coasters that my wife will absolutely hate. So now I shall prepare them in a little wrap that we've made, and a couple of very nice little sticky tabs. And there we are. I'm sure your wife would love to receive one of those. Now I must show you this. This is a little box, beautifully made and laser cut on the lid. This plus a slightly bigger box that surrounded this. So 2 of these boxes for £2, basically £1 each. The electricity to cut that would cost me more than £1 probably. It's insane, isn't it? Never one to turn away a bargain. I think it's excellent for putting that in, and there's my problem, getting it all back together again. I think we'll finish this session on another sensible note, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a very happy and prosperous New Year. Until I see you again, cheerio, thanks for your time. I reckon all those folks out there reckon the quicker he gets up there to fix St Peter's laser machine, the better we shall all be.